Please be seated. Well, welcome and good evening to this ordinary meeting of the Durham Union Society. I call upon the Secretary to lead the minutes of the last meeting. Secondly, it has been proposed that the minutes of the last meeting be taken as read. Is that your will?
Aye.
Questions may now be asked of officers of the Society relative to their official duties. Are there any questions of officers? Is there any business of officers? Okay, there being no further business, we now proceed to the main item of business, which is our Michaelmas 2023 presidential hustings. I cede the chair to John.
Thank you, Mr. President. Welcome to the hustings of the Michaelmas presidential election. In this election, I have received two valid nominations, the first being Jerry Lee of Hatfield College, proposed by Christopher Straughan of Josephine Butler College, seconded by Maria Snow of Trevelyan College. The second valid nomination received is Theo Osborn of Grey College, proposed by Aditya Sharma of Mildert College, seconded by Zaoli of South College. As per standard practice in presidential elections, reopen nominations with no fixed abode would be featured on the ballot paper. And now we will begin hustings of the candidates. Each candidate will have 10 minutes each, followed by questions and answers. I now call upon Jerry Lee to hust for no longer than 10 minutes. Mr. Lee.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the House. I stand here today before the Chamber in stark contrast to that for which I first entered 2 years ago. Be fruitful and multiply, said our former secretary in my first committee meeting, in which I had the honour of winning the first contested election of that term, the only contested election of that batch. Hard times. And though my personal life is not exactly reflected what I presume God had meant by that phrase, the Union itself has since prospered and multiplied. In my first term, there were 1 legislative debate and 6 addresses, all of which I attended and little of which I remember. Bar the deserted benches, and perhaps a last-minute appeal for attendance on the Gen Con chat, so that speakers aren't embarrassed by an empty chamber. The institution was lethargic, rife with suspicion, reeling from the wake of COVID and our own past scandals. Membership relied purely on word of mouth and was constrained to a very narrow set of political belief and demographic. I can personally testify to that journey. As the union's equalities officer through all of last year, I vigorously pushed for a program to make the union more representative. My tenure has seen a rise in the diversity of our engagement and a steady recovery of our image. I do not believe in tokenism, but few, I think, can doubt the appeal of the union is much broader now than it has been last year. What we have done in these 2 years is remarkable. From a timid union, fragmented and fractured, to the bustling chamber, with queues out of the door to keep House Committee and myself very busy. The highly competitive elections we've recently had demonstrates the upward trajectory and enthusiasm of this institution. The future, once proffered as a vision, is now among us. And we did this through a strong belief in what we stand for. We did this because our values are still as worthy as they were a decade or indeed a century ago. As an international student, the union gave me a welcoming sense of community when I first joined the university. It was the opinion and argument that mattered, not background, and thank goodness, not the pine time. I see in the union the best of Britain, foremost the affairs of the world, propped up by happy camaraderie, imbued with time-honored traditions, deeply rooted in freedom of speech, the free flow of ideas, and strict standards of civility and respect. The unions stand by these values and I stand by these values also. My candidacy seeks to amplify all that is best and special about this place, and has made it prosperous thus far. For the protection of our past, the benefit of Durham today, and the foundations for the Union in years to come. There is something uniquely exciting about getting dressed up on a Friday evening, affecting an almost insufferable level of gravitas, and attending a spirited and intellectual debate, quite an unusual pastime for the humdrum underground life. I am proud of this unique value we can offer to our members, and this is made all the more special with the knowledge that Union members have been doing so for generations. And the future beckons. I envision for my Michaelmas a visible and accessible Union. I will defend and promote free speech in the chamber by expanding the range and depth of our debates outside the narrow political realms which we have thought to occupy. I will foster a new sense of unity and friendship within society through the integrated fresher drive strategy over the start of term, and indeed before term begins. I will invite speakers from authors, biologists, and artists, and of course, classicists. I will make the opportunity of addressing this chamber, one that I relished only a few weeks ago, more accessible and regular, with weekly emergency debate motions on Friday nights before the main event. I will project the tradition and the confident brand of our society across Palace Green, across County Durham, and all across the country. I will rebuild strong relationships with the university departments, our student societies, and indeed the local communities. Under my term, the Union shall be restored to preeminence. We'll reach out, of course, to international students, among whom membership uptake is sometimes abysmally low. For example, the Chinese community, numbering more than 3,300 at the last university survey, very few of whom are members. If elected, I would indeed be the first president of Chinese heritage, and I would be uniquely positioned to bring membership from that quarter, starting from the introduction of a Chinese term card at the beginning of Michaelmas. I see the Union today as a space for everyone, whether it be making 24s a premium preen value for Fabio's unhinged Thursdays, introducing a faith representative on the Equalities Committee, or encouraging toga enthusiasts at my debate, This House will regret the fall of Rome. If elected, I vow to leave the Union more famous, more open, and more fun than I found it. In this vein, I intend to lay the groundwork for even grander things. Digital membership cards will be a momentous step in the modernisation of the Union, and my proposal for a new press committee will transform our scope and our reach. We will become a true venue of public debate, not only here, but beyond. Just a week ago, the Church Union debate featured on the Church Times. This did not cross my mind when I was organising the debate. But what proof of our stature is better than an article in a national newspaper? We discuss affairs of national relevance, and the press committee will ensure that the voice of this dispatch box is heard outside of our chamber much more than any daily bar crawl is heard within. Furthermore, introducing an alumni fundraising reception in London will kick-start our new networking opportunities for our members and lay the foundation for a new mentorship scheme. Not only that, it will grow our revenues through donations and allow for reconnection with the alumni, not only as donors, also as speakers, as we've seen with Sebastian Payne and Sir Robert Butler. One of our most valuable assets is our alumni, and I intend to build on that. I am the candidate with a steadfast blueprint for development and prosperity. As I said in my Equalities Officer Hust a year and a half ago, I suppose a few of you will remember, I'm not here to pontificate or bring confrontation. Instead, I have the qualities to be a president with a door open to all. I undertook nine-line training and discreetly dealt with complaints as a qualities officer. I am equipped to deal with the concerns of our members. I have shown dedication to the union by service since the first days of my first year. As the equalities officer, and perhaps as the longest-serving member of the House Guard. I have been on every constituent committee of the union, having chaired 2 of them. I have sat on 3 president's committees and know how the job works very well. I have organised the Lunar New Year social and put together a team to execute it. I have personally organised the most successful date of my time in Durham, the Church in England debate a couple of weeks ago. I know the union how the union functions inside and out. My hope now is to steer the journey I had helped to chart when we first set out. As this ship enters the choppy high seas, I believe that my qualities, my vision, are best for the helm. The sails are full, the wind is favourable, and the crew, crucially, are eager. I trust that you will vote for the candidate that you believe truly warrants your vote. And regardless of whether I end up in that chair, I will carry on supporting the great works of this great union. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. I now invite Theo Osborn to Hust for no longer than 10 minutes.
Friends and members of the Durham Union, I'm delighted to be standing before you today as a candidate for president. I'm sure many of you have seen my policies plastered over your Instagram feeds and in manifestos in your hands already. But before I make the case for why these are the policies the Union of today needs, I'd like to tell you about why this place means so much to me. It all started 5 years ago, in year 10 at my school. In the aftermath of Brexit and then Trump, I became fascinated by politics, current affairs, but most importantly, argument and debate. I was encouraged by a friend to join my school's Model United Nations Society. One thing led to another, and suddenly I found myself standing in front of a room of 30 other 16-year-olds giving a speech. I think bizarrely I was representing Peru, talking about smuggling policy in Africa. There was just one problem. I found it incredibly difficult to say anything at all. It's not something I often talk about, but up until the end of my sixth form, I was very shy. For instance, never putting my hand up to contribute to class, or finding it difficult to even speak to shopkeepers. Speaking in public to a room like this was something I never imagined was possible. Debating changed that for me. I know the power that it has to transform people's lives because I experienced it myself. I will never take that for granted, and that is why I am so passionate about places like the Union. I hope that for many of those thousands of freshers who pour into Durham each year, the Union is their first experience of proper debate. I hope it has the same effect as debating had on me all those years ago. Put simply, my unrelenting focus is to ensure that as many of those people as is physically possible walk through that door on the left. However, that simply has not been happening over the last few years. Since COVID, that transformational appeal of the Union has failed to reach enough college rooms, viaduct houses and postgrad flats around Durham. That's why our membership levels have been declining in the last few years. The Michaelmas President plays the most crucial role in driving membership for the whole year, because the Freshers' Drive provides the best opportunity we have for showing who we are and what we do. That's why I commit to building constructive relationships with the SU and with college JCRs. This membership growth is vital, not least for all of you. Propelling membership to new heights means a boosted budget, which means more money to spend on addresses, debates, and fantastic socials. Because frankly, if the Society's membership does not recover, It does not matter how many corporate sponsors we have or how many London alumni receptions we host, because the society simply will not have the money to survive in its current form. And that hurts me personally, because I've seen the positive impacts that this place has on people. Whether that's opening your mind to new and challenging ideas, forming lifelong friendships, or simply drinking too much post-event wine in 24s. However, I have a plan to get our membership, and therefore our finances, back on track. To start with, we cannot go on offering the same old set of speakers, addresses, and debates. We need fresh ideas and perspectives. That's why I'm determined to widen the union's appeal by transforming the lineup of speakers we offer to the membership, drawing on a new speakers database, which, among other things, will keep track of past speakers, as well as those who've declined our invitations, and so that we can offer a truly different range each and every term. But hold on a second, you think to yourself, okay, that's all very well and good, but how do you reach the next level of speakers? I'm talking the Edward Snowdens, the Taylor Swifts, the Bear Grylls of the world. Well, my answer is to introduce a new 1842 Founders Award. Drawing on the lessons from the Phil in Trinity College Dublin, which I know recently hosted President Biden, I would send personalised letters to high-profile speakers, inviting them to come to this chamber to accept an award associated with our long and prestigious history. According to the president of the Phil, who I was speaking with just a few weeks ago, these awards have been crucial in securing many of their biggest names. We also need to reconnect directly with our membership. By creating a data-driven marketing strategy, we can focus on what our members want and what might sway our soon-to-be members. My friend and proposer, the secretary, has already written the Project Boom report, analysing the challenges of college membership levels, and this provides an excellent foundation for us to build upon. This strategy will highlight what our members value from membership currently, what they're longing for, and what we can do to reach out to many more people than before. That way, we can rejuvenate languishing membership levels through a targeted in-person outreach scheme, restoring union membership to its historic glory. I also believe we can engage our active members even further by offering every member the opportunity to speak in Friday night debates. I would introduce a transparent and fair interview process to ensure that everyone gets equal access to this life-changing opportunity. We can further strengthen our transparency by publishing our committee minutes on the website again and giving members an insight into where their £65 is spent. Both of these measures are crucial in ensuring this society and its traditions are around in 100 years' time and that its distinguished legacy remains. It is, however, vital that our historic traditions are not just kept alive on life support, but strengthened and respected more than ever. Our constitution is the beating heart of these traditions, and so it is vital that, in the words of a particular Mr. Josh Oxley, we stay up until 4 AM reading it. Now, I'm not just committing to do that, because I'm sorry to say I've already done that. No, I will instead establish a constitutional working group to produce a report into inconsistencies in our constitution, with the explicit aim of strengthening independence, fairness, and transparency. It will be composed of former returning officers and presidents of our society, in addition to advisors from our sister unions in Oxford and Cambridge, who I'm proud to say have already been keen to sign up. An often overlooked opportunity offered by the union is its world-renowned competitive debating wing. Having been involved in the re-affiliation process with competitive debating by being on standing committee, I have a deep understanding of its importance. Competitive debating will always have a special place in my heart because of the transformative impact it had on me and the opportunities offered as a result. Not only can you develop your understanding of some of the most controversial issues, but you can go to international competitions from Madrid to Vietnam. I'm determined to strengthen these ties, ensuring that debating opportunities are extended to as many people as possible. I will work with the Treasurer and Debating Treasurer to ensure that debate funding is increased in line with the attendance growth we see in debate training sessions. Not only does that build trust and harmony, but it also ensures that more people have access to competitions, thus improving our value for membership. Having been involved in this union for a large part of my university experience, I formed many of my best friendships in this very building and down the road at 24s. The most important foundation of the union's social experience is that we have a culture in which everyone feels welcomed. We know who our culture fails to appeal to, and we see that reflected in our membership levels, as well as representation in positions of power in the society. I will work with my friend and seconder, Emma, the social secretary, to use socials to drive forward inclusivity, allowing traditionally underrepresented groups in the union to feel welcomed and valued. But we must also reflect inwards on the culture that our most senior members nurture and influence, to ensure that the standards we hold ourselves to are the highest possible. The chief part of this reform is bringing the Officers' Code of Conduct in line with the universities. Having been a member of the Standing Committee for a whole year, I understand the privilege of serving the union and the responsibility that comes with it. Now, you've heard my vision, but I look around and I see something distinct in some of your eyes. I look at doubt, cynicism, or even distrust. Yes, it's an ambitious vision, but I have a history of delivering ambitious things. As tech officer, I secured £2,700 to professionalise our audio and video systems, allowing addresses like that of the former Ukrainian Prime Minister to be possible, and in fact to live stream this very event. That was ambitious. I played an instrumental role in rejuvenating the union's online presence, from the YouTube channel, the website, and even our brand new alumni platform and emailing list. That was ambitious. And while doing all of that, I served as Speaker's Secretary in the most successful Michaelmas term since before COVID. That was ambitious. But judge me on my record. I delivered every single manifesto pledge, and I commit to do the same to you today. But above all else, I simply wish to give you the hope that I had when I entered this place a little over a year ago. To quote the former president from many years ago, that is why I am standing here, to do some good for the Durham Union Society. I finish as I began, your servant. Thank you.
Thank you for that fine speech. We'll now move to a Q&A session. Is there a point of...
No, it's a question, sorry.
Let me finish, please. So, members of campaign teams, please state that fact clear before asking the question. This applies all across the board. Before you ask your question, please state your name and college for the purposes of the minutes. Right, any questions? Right, William Rowe.
William Rowe, Hillby College, nice speaker. I'm not a member of any campaign. I want to ask you both. So, our current president has made a big thing about the Try Before You Buy scheme, which has been a great success of mine, and it's filled the chamber. Do you believe that this would be something that you should look into for your terms, or do you believe that your strategies for getting increasing membership and increasing attendance at events would make that unnecessary? Thank you.
Jerry?
I think for Michaelmas it is certainly an option, but it really depends on the books. Frankly, as the Treasurer has been telling me, we're not in a great financial shape, and if we can't afford it, then we won't do it.
Yes, so I think, as Jordan made clear in his Hust for President, this is an experiment, it's a new thing, and I welcome innovative approaches. I think we've got to wait and see what the numbers are like at the end of this term, how many of those, I think 150 so people, have converted into a membership, and at that point I'm very happy to make a decision. Obviously, as Jerry says, it depends on our financials. The big focus in Michaelmas, which I think is different to Epiphany, is that you have a big drive at the start of term in terms of the Freshers' Fair, in terms of leafleting outside on Palace Green with matriculation. And so I think it is a very different term, but we'll have to see what happens then, depending on the financial situation.
Thank you.
Right. Dylan?
Dylan Buckley, I'm at College, and I'm also on Jeremy's campaign team.
Given both candidates have stressed the financial situation we're in, would you both like to go further into your plans for increasing membership and revenue beyond we're going to get more members, we'll have good speakers, etc., etc.? What is your plan for improving our revenue from all areas of the society? Thank you.
Theo?
Yeah, well, I think I've made it pretty clear what my plan is. It's a laser focus on membership. I mean, I think things like the alumni effort are very good. I played a big part in it. You know, I set up the alumni database, I set up the alumni mailing list, sent out about 5,000 emails a few weeks ago for that. And I think having alternative revenue streams is important. But we can't forget that we are a society based on student membership coming into this chamber, going into socials. And so I think the best way to improve that is to actually find out what people want from us. There's a lot of talk in this room about sort of, oh, this idea, that idea, but we don't know what those 900 and so members actually want unless we talk to them. And that's why I think we should go out, do street surveys, do surveys on the door of members who are coming in, see what they want, see what potential members want, and then we can use that to tailor which speakers we invite to gain more speakers. I think that's the most important thing, is that we have a laser focus on what draws people into this place. I mean, socials as well. Socials, I know many of my friends from college came into the uni for the first time from socials. I think having a social scene that is welcoming and inclusive also drives membership as well. But I think it is more about the speakers, and I think I've demonstrated through speakers database and many of the other policies that I have about improving the situation with our speakers, that is the number one thing that drives it. I mean, additionally, you've got to outreach to other societies and other parts of the university, the SU, get us back in the Freshers' Fair. It's a multi-pronged approach, but I think the number one focus is on speakers rather than looking at sort of alumni receptions, which I think in the past have proved slightly more unreliable than what speakers can provide.
Jerry?
I think I will first like to address the point of alumni reception. Now, especially after COVID, the donations we have been, the sponsorship we have been receiving and the donations we've been getting from alumni has plummeted. And the first alumni weekend was, if I recall correctly, not very long before COVID. But that was held in Durham. The crucial difference is a lot of alumni have, as hopefully we will do, gone down to London and have gone on to very, I suppose, hopefully well-paid jobs. And the point of doing it before term in London is to make it more accessible to alumni, so they can so they won't have to travel all the way out to Durham and spend evening or weekend here. I think it is very, very much worth doing in terms of it's before the term, it doesn't damage the impact of speakers, and I think it is generally quite a sensible policy. On the other hand, I think our press committee draws national attention if it's done correctly. It draws local connection. We can do regional papers, but also we can do national papers. And when they speak at the Durham Union and the speakers can read their names in national publication, and when they know that what they say in this chamber matters, I think that is a great attraction of speakers. Now, of course, as Theo mentioned, speakers are what essentially draws members to the society.
Next question. Yep.
Quite a short question. I'm on Theo Osborn's campaign team, obviously, Louis Bedoy, Stevenson College. How would both candidates mend the relations between this union and the rest of the university, from which some people would say, compared to our glory days, we've kind of become ostracised? So yeah, how would you mend that relationship culturally and interpersonally?
Jerry?
I mean, I think it is important for us to focus on issues that matter to, Michaelmas especially, freshers, but also across universities. So I propose, for example, on the 10th of October, I think that is the first week of term, there will be a World Mental Health Day event. It will be a debate, but with the opposition. This House would talk about mental health. And I think this is the sort of event that will show that the union today is very different from the union that was ostracized however long ago. It is a union that cares about the issues that matter to people and shows concern for its members. And it's also very important, I mean, I don't think anyone here today would say that the union they're experiencing is perhaps the many clawed monsters that was talked about, I don't know, in some circles, especially in last year. I think it's very important to get out to the freshers early on and let them know that we are a welcoming and open society, and this is what we're here to do, and tell us if we had any issues. But generally, I actually agree with Theo's policy of having a stricter officers code. I think that says commitment to freshers, and there'll be a statement of what sort of society wants to be.
Theo?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. In terms of repairing relations with the rest of the university, I think it's a two-pronged approach. Obviously, there are the sort of organisations in the rest of the university, like the SU and the JCRs, and I've said that I will reach out, offer an olive branch, and go for meetings with the SU president, the SU officers, and all presidents of all JCRs. I think as a gesture of goodwill and a gesture that we have changed as a society. But I think the second one is a lasting reputational issue, which I don't think is entirely fair, given the way that society has changed. But I think the way we change that reputation is again, there's a few factors that lead to it. I think there's a cycle that happens. We invite a certain type of speaker who caters to a certain type of audience. That audience gets involved, the audience then rises up to the exec, and the cycle continues. I think that cycle affects our reputation in that it changes the way that we're perceived in the rest of the university. They see, okay, these are a set of speakers that cater to a small group. Why should I go along to that? Creates a sort of closed-off bubble. I also think, in terms of other reputational issues, there's things around the Officers' Code of Conduct. I think, as Jerry said, I'm glad to hear that he agrees with me about that. That needs to be massively tightened up and brought in line with the university. I think that will enable, that will mean that future incidents are less likely to occur. And I think that as a whole package is sort of how I go about repairing relations.
Third row?
Denham Ranger, University College, and I'm not on any campaign. I'm hearing a lot about this proposed code of conduct. What exactly do you propose to change, and how do you propose to do it?
Theo?
Is this time to question or both hands?
Both
Yeah.
candidates.
Yes, it's a very good question. In terms of, the main thing I think that jumps out to me when you read the Officers' Code of Conduct is that honesty isn't mentioned once. Now, I feel like that is a crucial thing for us to be able to come into this chamber and for every one of you here to know that when officers tell you something, right, they are telling the truth. Okay, it's important that we have that in there. I think the other thing is that in terms of making sure that officers are doing their duties appropriately, duties are not particularly well defined in the Constitution at all, and so that makes the Code of Conduct pretty toothless. I think those are the two main areas that I would change. Though obviously the way I would go about changing that, it wouldn't just be me in a room sort of writing a document. It would be a collaborative process with other parts of the university, drawing on lessons they've learned. It would be working with the Equalities Officer, with the Equalities Committee, it would be working with Standing Committee. I want to make this a collaborative effort because I think that's how you affect lasting change with the union's reputation.
Jerry?
I think that the Officers' Code of Conduct, yes, needs more definitions. I think, yes, they are currently vagaries that might lead to confusion, and when more clearly defined standing could then much more clearly decide whether an officer is derogating his duty. Now the same applies with committees. Now I have served on many committees, and I can tell you that a lot of committee duties aren't very well defined, failure stands and that sort of thing. In terms of getting the union energized and engaged, I think I would actually extend the Officers' Code of Conduct, not fully, but part of it to members' committees, so that House committees actually turn up, Press Committee will actually send their emails, the President's Committee can actually send their emails. Yeah.
Right, next question. The gentleman at the back.
Charlie Puppich, University College, and I think there was much talk about codes of conduct and also about members. But what I find, or what I hear from people that I speak to that turn away from the union or just don't decide to become members, that it's rather less actual incidents that happen, but just that they don't feel welcomed. And I think it's much more difficult to change perception than to change an actual problem, because when there's a problematic member, you can always expel them, you can sanction an unacceptable officer. But how can you change a perception, and also how can you change that? How can you create a climate that seems pleasant almost to nowadays freshers? Because I do think, and I have heard from people who come to 24s and felt like, I don't really feel like people like me, quote unquote, are welcome there. And I think it's much more difficult. It's not like there is some gruesome violation of a code of conduct, but I think it's perceptual. What would you do to tackle that?
Jerry? Well, there are many initiatives. I mean, for example, I think I'd be very open to, say, tailoring the dress code to suit special occasions. I mean, one's very welcome to, say, wear a toga to a Roman debate, for example. But on a more serious note, I think my proposal of, say, designating a LGBTQ T+ night at 24s every Thursday would help our image. And also, I mean, as Johnny, you probably know, a lot of these people who think, well, there's people like me don't belong in this sort of place. I think the best way is, of course, to talk to them, and I've had many a conversation like this before, and I think it is very important to get them in 24s and have friendly members of the union to engage and to tell them what the union actually is. And I think, I mean, we're very clear about what we stand for, we're very clear about what we do. And I think our ethos is one that most members of the university, presumably with the intellectual curiosity, could stand behind. So, yeah, get yourself out there, talk to potential members, talk to people in the chamber, talk to people at the door, talk to people in the bar.
Theo?
Well, I absolutely agree. I think it's a really big problem that there are a lot of people I speak to, particularly from college, who, even a mention of it, I don't tell them I'm an officer here all the time, right, because of that perception that's out there. And so I think it needs to go beyond gestures in the way that we deal with this. It needs to grip the problem at the grassroots, which is the fact that, as I was saying, there's this cycle, right? The cycle of speakers and the cycle of the same sort of people, and then people who feel like they disagree with those people or disagree with the views of that people. You can imagine going into a society where everybody disagrees with you, right? Everybody takes another side. Well, that's at least the perception. That's an incredibly intimidating thing to do. And so I think the number one thing is actually changing the speakers that we're inviting, to change the people who come in. But I think another part is socials. I mean, Jerry mentioned socials, using 24s as that space. Talking with Emma, we've come up with this proposal for women-only event nights. And I think they're another really crucial part, not just for women, but for all sorts of identity groups that are underrepresented in the union and feel that they may not necessarily be welcome here. I think that's another part of it that we need to address. But I think the number one thing is about speakers and that cycle I was talking about. It should go beyond gestures.
Right.
Yes, Severino, Bonvini, and I'm on Theo's campaign team. So I'd just like to ask the candidates, what would they say are the biggest challenges that they'll face, specifically as a Michaelmas president? And how do they feel that their experience, and also say personal abilities and character traits, enable them to best solve these challenges?
Theo?
It's a really good question, thank you. Yeah, so the number one thing in Michaelmas term is about membership. because it's the Michaelmas president who does the bulk of the freshers' drive throughout the year, does the bulk of the membership gains. That is the number one priority. And so the reason that I have the experience for that is the fact that I was Speaker's Secretary in Amy's term. You know, I was working tirelessly over the holiday for that term. I worked with her on the Freshers' Drive. I was out there leafleting at every event in Freshers' Week, handing out literally hundreds of leaflets. I understand how the process works because I was right there at the centre of it last time. I know what worked, I know what didn't, and I can do it again far, far better, I believe. But yes, the most important thing I think is Freshers' Fair, in terms of how we improve that. Now, last time the reasons that we weren't allowed in are somewhat out of our control this year, but I think there has been an agreement among the SU, among the university, that we have changed, and that now that is looking slightly more promising. As I said, I'm open, I'm extending the olive branch to go and meet with leaders of the SU, of JCRs, to make sure that we're back in the Freshers' Fair. I can do that because I think I'm an approachable person. I can sit down in a room and talk with these people, lay out our problems and how we've improved in an honest way, and I think I can win them over.
Jerry?
I think, again, yes, I think, yes, membership, but crucially, Freshers' Drive is one of the most challenging parts of Michaelmas, and yes, I was also here at the start of term doing all the leafleting, trying to track down people on panel screen after creation, pictures, and aggressively stuffing them with term cards. That went quite well, I think. I mean, Michaelmas term is supposed to be our largest term, and we certainly saw a lot more membership uptake this year than we did last year. However, I think it is worth reconsidering our strategy in terms of pushing out to freshers. I think I'm correct in saying £1,600 has been spent on term cards, but only £60 on that, which is quite incredible to me, because there are people who aren't rather put off by being given a term card, but I think and generally have quite a good engagement, and we will, if only we have a few more £100 to push on Instagram or Facebook before term started, or during International Freshers' Week when people have just got to Durham but have nothing to do. I think that is quite an important thing. But also, I mean, Theo mentioned the Freshers' Fair. Yes, and I'm aware that the SU amendment quite hostile to our cause, condemning the union and that sort of thing drafted during the time of our troubles, are now due to expire. And yes, it will be much easier to get into Freshers' Fair, and I believe I have the dedication and I have the approachability to do that. But I think more generally, what is important, I think, a quality that I have is I look to innovative solutions, and I look to the solutions that have not been done before. For example, with the alumni reception, we now, with the event happening before term starts, we can now start engaging offer holders. Indeed, the work will probably start in May or June. We can start engaging offer holders to get them to buy a membership. We will get their parents to buy them a membership before they enter university. I think looking to different solutions, looking beyond the time frame, is what I'm good at, and I hope I'll be able to do it.
I'm at Straughan Snow College, and I'm on Jerry's campaign team. As an international student myself, I'd love to hear a little bit more from both candidates regarding how you're really planning on engaging them, particularly that huge Chinese group of students that we have here, around 3,000 potential members. Not only do I think that it's great to include them, but also I feel like they could be a huge source of membership, so I'd like to hear a little bit more about that.
Theo?
I think it's a great question, and I first of all like to say, yeah, we definitely need to engage far more in the week before Freshers' Week. I totally agree on that. In terms of the work that's already been done, I think using Equalities Committee a lot more to reach out to those groups, but I think also finding out what they want. I mean, I understand there's the proposal to make multilingual term cards, But I think if we're talking about focusing our money in the right places, I think it can be better spent elsewhere, like funding those on events that actually bring international students, into the chamber. And I think it's also a similar approach to the one I've spoken about having women-only socials, about having international socials much more. I've said that I want to organise many more fresher socials. International-only socials are going to be a key part of that, because I think that's what the union is really all about. Yeah, it's about debate, it's about politics, it's about all those great things, but it's also the social hub, I believe. It should be the social hub for Durham University. And in order to become that, we need to do far, far more work in terms of socials in the first term, and to reach out to different communities that we may not have before.
Right, Jerry?
I mean, I think I'm, quite unique in the position to address this issue. Now, in International Freshers Week, there isn't a lot of events. I think there was a plan of having an event at 24's past International Freshers Week, which didn't quite materialise. But I should certainly, we're both the residents there, so I think it'd be possible now to have a social open, and that would be the first thing in sort of a pan-Durham social calendar, because there'd be before Freshers Week, there'd be internationals newly arrived into Durham, and the union will be a place of them. But I want to reconsider the idea of women-only socials, international-only socials. I think the idea that in order to be open, we need to be more closed is perhaps not the best way of addressing the problem. I think by excluding people who are, if you say it's national-only social, and I don't know, if you can't produce a British passport, and you'll be able to get in, it sounds like
Point of information.
Right?
Is that that?
Sorry?
Is that point of information?
Do you accept the point of information?
The point of having socials for women only.
State your name and college.
Sorry, Henry Woods, Hatfield College. I'm a member of Theo's campaign. Surely the whole point of having women-only socials and international-only socials is because currently people don't feel welcomed. So it's very idealistic to say we're excluding people, but surely we're including people, really.
Jerry?
I'm afraid I don't accept that. You're saying that union men are such scary creatures that women need to be keeping.
No, I did not say that.
Oh.
Can I add something?
I'm sorry, that's out of order. We won't be taking comments like that.
Jerry, would you like to continue?
Go on.
Just subsequent to that, I would argue that although initially it may seem like a closed thing, wouldn't you think that maybe, given the idea that some people might feel not included right now, it would enable people to sort of a stepping stone, so to speak, from a closed space of only internationals or women and so on and so forth, to then integrating further.
I'm afraid, especially with freshers, if indeed we've been so unsuccessful with our image that they still think that we're all some sort of monsters that they can't talk to, I'm afraid that's simply a sign of our failure. We shouldn't be running away because they might think. We need to go out to them. We need to talk to them. We have to make sure we're presentable. How are they supposed to sit down in this chamber alongside all of our members if they can't feel comfortable talking to a man or British person?
Jerry, can you just get to the point, please?
No, you did address it.
Yes. Sorry, what was that? Yes. In terms of the Chinese, for the Chinese term card, we don't need to hire a specialized translator. We have a handful of Chinese speakers here. I don't think it will incur a lot of extra cost, and we will just make our term card and sort of rephrase a lot of things in Chinese. I don't think that is a lot of money ill spent. If anything, we'll produce. I won't give a number of how many copies we will produce, but it is not a huge expense, and it taps into a community that is frankly quite insular. I mean, the Chinese students occupy, I think it was, especially in the postgrad community, quite a large proportion. And yes, these, I'm afraid a lot of them don't use English when they're speaking to each other, and Chinese would be their preferred language of contact, but it doesn't mean that they won't come to the chamber and listening to something they would find interesting. They go to lectures, they understand lectures well enough, and I think with the Chinese term cards, a huge problem with that is they don't know that we exist, they don't know what we offer, and we don't have a customized version of our term card for them, they just won't know about it. But this is 3,000 people. This is, I mean, if you give it 3,000 potential members, if we want just to get, say, 20% of that number, we'll have almost half of our current Michaelmas intake.
Right, thank you. Next question. The lady at the member of the back.
Yeah. Hi, Amelia Bealby, Hatfield College. I'm not on any campaign team. There's been a lot of talk about making the union more accessible, but nobody's actually brought up any concrete measures they're going to take to make it more accessible to students from lower income backgrounds. How do you plan to tackle that?
Theo.
Well, I think the primary thing is that we need to advertise our access memberships a lot more, because I think at the minute, you know, it's £65. I don't think that fee should be raised, while we're still proving that we have value for membership. No, I know. I mean the normal rate. I don't think it should be raised, because not everyone has the 100% direct grant, and that's the thing with the access membership, is that you have to receive a 100% direct grant in order to be eligible for it. But it's not advertised particularly well. I would improve that. And really, I think that is the main thing. The other thing is with balls. I think having access tickets for balls is a really, really important measure. I think that's the main thing that I would focus on. But it's a really good question. Thank you.
Jerry?
I mean, yes, access membership is a great way, and it ought to be advertised more. And in general, I think bringing in the digital membership card will allow more measures working towards, feasibility will of course have to be explored, that we've shown that to produce a digital membership card is very, very easy, and this then leads to a whole new step in our commercial operations. We can now be much more accessible, for us to produce, say, a cheaper rate at the bar for members with digital membership cards. I know there will be a lot more work and discussion and details that this... Yes.
Can I ask how the digital membership scheme will be implemented? What technologies is it using, and what sort of costing we're looking at for that?
Well, I can show you here. I have a Joint Union membership card right here. The technology, I'm a layman, but Chris knows how to operate this. It's proven to be surprisingly simple. I still don't understand it, but it's all a very streamlined system in which it's just the code and it can be scanned at the bar by whoever's on duty. I don't think, again, I'm in no position to comment on affairs at the bar. I think that offers, especially combined with treasurer's treats, which now you have to dig into your wallet to find some sort of the current membership card, which isn't very slick and isn't very easy for business owners to process. If we have a digital membership scheme, then we can offer our members a lot more benefits from treasurer's treats and corporations all across Durham than we currently do. And that will not only be saving them money in the union, it will be saving them money from all over Durham.
Given the time, I'll take one final question. The lady on the second row.
Elma Leach from John Snow College. So we've had quite a few questions regarding equalities, minority demographic groups. I'm pretty sure everyone that's from a minority demographic group is probably fed up of talking about it, because we should pass the point of it now. Not because it's not an important issue, but that you would think it would be a past point. But I think it kind of relates into this deeper issue that we haven't got to, which is don't think that, whilst I welcome ideas about socials reaching out to certain groups that might not be particularly well represented, I think that this idea, when we've had words say, it's kind of a protective discourse or kind of a rebuttal discourse of, angry union men. I don't think anyone actually thinks that. I don't know why there isn't more women in the union per se. I think we need to, and also when we went to, on a similar thing about discourse and respective discourse, at Peter Hitchen's debate, I mean, I know he's a controversial figure, but he was quite rude to some of our people who tried to ask questions. Very rude. And I felt myself, think to myself, I think we should really try and include something, not that I know much about how the system runs, but about making us have more power to try and bring that back down. Because I don't think, if I took some friends with me that have never gone to the union and were from the kind of demographics that are unrepresented here, and that's their first thing they heard, and they heard Peter Hitchen shoot people down and say some quite insultory comments to them, and now they don't want to come. And we can dissect what demographics they're in and making socials for them, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, it's not really about the types of speakers, because they were willing to come to a Peter Hitchen debate. It was about how it was the kind of discourse that was used. So after all I've just said, basically what I'm trying to say is, how will you guys want to approach that kind of discourse and making it more inclusive? Because I think that's the root of the issue, really. Thank you.
Jerry?
I mean, it brings back to my point about civility and respect. I think it's incumbent upon the chair to hold the House to order. Now, if a member of the audience being particularly rowdy, or indeed a speaker being particularly rowdy, the chair, it is the duty of the chair, whoever that may be, to hold them to account. So, the discipline of the chamber is very important. I think we use a style of debating that is time-honoured, and the order of the meeting is supposed to be kept. It is particularly important to respect the procedures that we've always followed, because these are the procedures that are shown to be working. These are the procedures that let the speakers speak, and also let the speakers be held to account by questions from the floor. However, not being interrupted, and that sort of thing. So, yes, I think the debates ought to be kept under control, whatever the format may be, and the chair, it is the duty of the chair to uphold that. I believe I have the qualities to hold a debate to account. I believe I have the qualities to maintain civilized discourse.
Well, I think it's about leadership, and it's about what sort of standards we want to set. Jerry's completely right. It is about who's in the chair. And I think that whoever is in the chair has a responsibility to everybody in this room at whatever event they're at, to make sure that everyone has a good time, hopefully people learn something, and that they're not being insulted by whoever that is. And that's up to the chair to intervene. The chair, and as chair, I would intervene when that happens, because I know my number one priority is for members to have a good time, and for them, to have a good time in the chamber. I think it's also about a choice in sort of what sorts of events we host. Is it that we want to prioritise controversial events, which are going to create a lot of heat in the chamber, or do we want to prioritise interesting events? I think it's a binary choice, but there's a balance to be struck.
My question was more, I think that people will want to come to heated discussion, but it just needs to be respectful. People in this room can disagree on lots of different things, and I've seen that they speak very respectfully to each other. And I just felt like we had a speaker who wouldn't even let people finish their questions and would make these kind of, there's insinuations within what he was saying in response.
Point of information?
You would like to take the point of information?
Should I just respond to this?
Yes, of course.
Sorry. No, you're totally right. And I think it is, sometimes it can be intimidating. You have this big speaker come in, you don't want to upset them, but I think you have got to be brave, and you've got to tell them when they're acting out of order. And I think that is something that as chair I would absolutely prioritise. It can be embarrassing, but I think the number one priority is making sure that people in the room have a good time. don't feel insulted by speakers, because that's the last thing we want. Yes, sorry.
Okay. Maria Snow, Trevelyan College, and I am the second of Jodie's campaign. I would just like to further what he said about the respect given the Chamber towards speakers.
Wait, this is a point of information.
This is a point of information. In the sense that I remember one of my first debates in this chamber was the Commonwealth debate in Amystown. Now, I don't know how many of you were there, but I asked a question of one of the speakers who was a proponent of the motion that the Commonwealth would have a state. Now, I was the recipient of a particularly virulent and unpleasant attack regarding my question, very personal in nature. And I would just like to point out that none of the officers of this society stood up for me. None of the officers of this society were there to protect my interests or my feelings. And thankfully, the speaker at the end did come and find me and apologise. And I understand that in the heat of the moment, things can get very unpleasant. People say things they don't mean. But I would just like to point out that there has been a degree of dereliction of duty in the protection of members of this House. And I agree with you.
Well, all I can say is I'm very sorry to hear that, and I'm sorry that that happened. That would never happen. If I was in the chair, I'd make sure that if that happened again, I'd be there to comfort every member who that happened.
So, thank you. Now we would adjourn for 5 minutes, and after that, the proposers would Hust, followed by Q&A.
Who's gonna go on stage? No, if you get shut down, you get shut down. We know it.
My threat's still recovering.
Anyways, I'll see you outside. I'll see you back here in a bit. How long do we have?
I've been silent. John Chan.
I think Jordan.
Chris, can you give me a thumbs up with the line?
Right, so now we'll move to hustings by the proposer, and now call upon, so it will be 8 minutes each by each proposer, followed by questions and answers. I now call upon Aditya Sharma to hust for no longer than 8 minutes.
The first time I came across the name Theo Osborn, it was in August of 2021, and a rather bored pre-university me was on LinkedIn and chasing the prestigious honour of having 500 plus connections on my profile. And unbeknown to me, on the 24th of August 2021, at just past midday, I connected with a man who tonight I am proposing to be your next union president. And when I sat down with my pen, scribbling away at ideas of how I can convince you that Theo is the best person for the job, I found that I didn't need to be clever with literature, or to perhaps, as Lord Halifax would say, mobilise the English language and send it into battle. No. I just need to tell you a brief, summarised version of the last 442 days of my life. 442 days since I first met Theo Osborn. It was a blisteringly cold, late November night, and just past 2 a.m, a post-Michaelmas clubbing session had come to an end. A friend of mine from Mildert was rather sloshed and was struggling in her high-heeled shoes, and so as I prepared myself for the grueling journey of walking up the hill with someone who on that frosty night had chosen to make that journey barefooted, I was approached by a person in black tie. And they said, "Hi, I'm Theo. Are you Aditya? I think you've connected with me on LinkedIn." Theo and I made that journey up the hill together at the speed of a crawling toddler. But we did not let the constant and perpetual moaning of the soles of someone's bare feet touching the ice-ridden ground interrupt our conversation. 45 minutes later, when we finally reached Grey and he left, I remember thinking to myself, what a remarkably patient and charming man I had just met. When I got back to Van Mildert, after my friend had finished running her feet under the hot water shower, we had a cup of tea. But in our conversation, we both could not stop talking about the remarkable man we just met. Having seen him develop the alumni platform, or design the DUS website, or be Speaker Secretary in Michaelmas, or any of the triumphs from his chronicle of successes at the Union, I have to say the word patient, or the word charming, or bright, or talented do not quite cut how much of an exceptional of a person Theo is and how gifted of a mind he has. I thought I needed a word for this speech, a word that you can take away tonight, so when you cast your vote, you associate it with him with it. But what word could I possibly bestow on this individual who is my everyday emotional support network, my best and most trusted friend, the rock on which my time at Durham has been built? When thinking, I was reminded of a word in Italian that I came across quite some time ago. It's a word invented in 1561 by the Italian writer who wrote the Book of the Courtier, which is a sort of instruction manual on how to survive and impress in the political arena of a royal court. Sprezzatura. It is a word pretty close to untranslatable. There is no one word equivalent in any other European language. But the closest definition reads as follows. Sprezzatura is the ability of an individual to display an easy skill in accomplishing difficult actions which hides the conscious efforts that went into them. No single word can capture Theo's qualities better. He has edited hundreds of hours of video footage, revamped a website, established the alumni platform, rekindled the union's YouTube channel, been Speaker Secretary, and perhaps most challenging of all, has taught me how to code in HTML for the weekly email. All whilst having one of the most pressing roles on standing, all whilst doing a contact hour heavy STEM degree. Yet he's done all of that with such panache, zest, fluency and pure genius that he has made one of the most demanding jobs in the union look like an easy task. That is Theo's greatest and finest quality, a quality in him that I am envious of. He is able to pull off with universal success challenges of enormous magnitude, harnessing every lever of energy within him towards achieving his goals. Yet, he is able to do so with such great style, without a sigh, without any expression of fatigue. It is why I trust him to deliver, to reinvigorate the dormant components of our membership base, to reignite our presence on campus, to rebuild our relationships with JCRs and the SU, to deliver a freshers' drive that will rival the pre-COVID norm. Theo will deliver because he has delivered before, and as is the benchmark standard of him, he will do so with his finest quality, sprezzatura and the flair of casual brilliance. So tonight, whether you're on a campaign team or not, whether you know how you're going to vote or not, whether you're a regular at this chamber or not, I will leave you with one thing. The Michaelmas president sets the beat of the drum which will play throughout the next academic year. They are the ultimate and most important ambassador that we have to choose. So before you vote, I would urge you to think as if you were a fresher walking into this chamber for the first time. What type of individual would you like to see in that chair? For me, I think Theo is the epitome of the perfect individual. The charming, the patient, the bright bearer of sprezzatura who is welcoming, relatable and supportive. Every day, his work ethic inspires me, his friendship is a fuel that drives me, his very presence calms me. Even if he instills just 1% of the effect he has on me onto this society and its incoming cohort of freshers, he will create the atmosphere of renewal, transparency and hope that he has promised, and I know if elected he will do just that and more. And I thought I should end this speech on a rather personal note. Few know this, but I'm actually a man of faith, and there have been some rather tough days when, before going to bed and turning off my bedside lamp, I've had a moment of realisation of how fortunate I am to have Theo in my life. Now, given the amount of problems I give him, including but not limited to asking him to create 18 Secretary Committee email accounts in an afternoon, I do not know whether Theo feels that he is fortunate to have me in his life, but he for sure feels fortunate to have the Durham Union Society, and he is fortunate to have the Durham Union Society. But I think I speak for many here when I say that I think in equal measure the Durham Union Society is fortunate to have Theo Osborn. So back renewal, back transparency, back hope, champion sprezzatura, and vote for Theo Osborn. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that fine speech. I now call upon Christopher to Hust for no longer than 8 minutes.
I'm going to keep this short and sweet because you've already heard from Jerry himself, and you know exactly what's needed to make Michaelmas success for all of us. So I'm not going to bore you with more policy, but Michaelmas is our most important outward-facing term, when the spotlight on the union is at its strongest, and we have the most opportunities for growth. More than policies and promises, you want to know who the candidates really are, and the impression that they will make on the prospective leaders. Since meeting him by chance one evening on my very first day of term, 492 days ago, that impresses. Over the last year, I've seen Jerry in almost every setting imaginable, whether the bustling streets of St. James's, a rather rare appearance at Sunday night clubs, or a remote village in the Atlas Mountains, a trip to Morocco last Easter, alongside Jake and Matthew, both friends I met thanks to Jerry. You might be mistaken, and you wouldn't be mistaken for still wondering why, at first glance, someone who embodies a cross between Lord Salisbury and Paddington Bear is the candidate that I am proposing. But when you think about it, the qualities offered by both of these characters, of whom Jerry sits uniquely at the intersection, make him the obvious choice for our future as a society. They enable him, uniquely, to be everything that we expect and need of a president. Much like Paddington, Jerry is unfailingly generous, gentle and kind. He's taken a surprising fondness to my ridiculously sized IKEA jungle stock bear, and recently took it upon himself to host dinner for us, cooking enough dumplings to feed this room more than a few times over. But most importantly, he looks out for others and is always there when you need him. Jerry is the first person to bring me a cup of tea after a rough night out, or to cook for me when I'm feeling ill. And in fact, as I was writing this speech, Brooker told me that he went to Jerry first when facing a major health issue last year. The President is not just the face of our union, but has a duty to make it a more open, attractive and prosperous society for all our members. And these qualities, beyond his own unique perspective as an international fresher himself, make Jerry the perfect person to spearhead our freshers drive, because he's able to stand there, not just to tell them about the values we promote as a but to deeply embody them himself. And that's something that people see when they meet Jerry. You actually get to interact with him in person. And as to Lord Salisbury, Jerry always puts the institution first, and he upholds his responsibilities with unfailing duty. He holds a core set of values and is passionate about them, particularly at the Union, where his passion enables him to be so driven. Since day one, somehow, he has been here, doing things, and has a deep understanding that spans all the work we do. He never seems to stop thinking about the place. As a qualities officer, he was an ear for members, considerate, discreet, and trustworthy. While contributing to 3 presidents' committees, he organised our best attended debates of the year. This house has lost faith in the Church of England, and is now elected our steward. But unlike his invariably Victorian dress sense, these values are not just surface level, and he holds them truly close. Because the Union is not just something Jerry does to put on his LinkedIn or to boast about to school friends at home. But no longer a qualities officer, the spirit of inclusion lives on in everything Jerry does, and this shows in the fact that, just beyond saying he wants the Union to be a more open place, we all do, he has specifically written and created several policies and events that would actively further that never-ending aim. The debate, World Mental Health Day, with no opposition, for example, or more social events. Many of you asked how we're going to fix our relationship with the wider university, how we're going to bolster our standing, and to put ourselves back on the map, essentially, again. And I think a key part of that is making ourselves a central part of the university brand. What we should be, and we deserve to be, one of the university's core assets in its marketing efforts, attracting students. And Jerry has publicity reform. Currently, we just have Jake. We need a lot more than that to be able to make headlines. Jake does a great job, but we need more support. And Jerry wants to create a press committee, which I think is a fantastic idea, to maintain and foster relationships with student, national, and other papers, to properly manage our social media operations, to invest in ad spending rather than printing paper and harassing people in the streets. And this innovation makes us more attractive, but it also attracts a more diverse range of speakers. If more people want to come to the Union, we can invite more speakers. I know Jerry wants to hear from comedians, authors, athletes, and that will diversify our membership base with a wider interest base from address topics. And he's willing to embrace the digital world. I'm looking forward to the prospect of digital membership cards to be able to present at local institutions. I know you've heard a lot about them. But I think there is so much potential in many of the innovative things that Jerry wants to achieve, with specific, clear policies. At every level, Jerry offers the Union exactly what it needs, charting a new course between innovation and tradition. And from day one, he has been working hard to help get it there. He's not only a kindred soul or the eccentric spirit of the Durham Union, but he's fully dedicated to leaving it in a better place than he found it, and helping put us back on the map for the remarkable institution we are is something that I know he can do. But ultimately, Jerry brings people together. He was one of the first people I met last year as a fresher, and somehow managed to rope me in. I'm standing here now as an officer, and despite my initial reservations due to our reputation, I could not be more thankful for him convincing me to join. And as a result, I've met some of my closest friends at Durham here in this institution. I couldn't ask for a better friend or a better housemate, but more than that, I couldn't ask for a better president. It's an honour to be proposing him tonight, and I can't wait to see what he will do and go on to achieve if you put your trust in Jerry and support him. Thank you.
Thank you for that fine speech. We now move towards a Q&A session. Before asking your question, please state if you're a member of any size campaign team, your name and college for purposes of the minutes. And also, I would invite people not to make POIs in the middle of other people's answers for the sake, as we're running short on time here. So, questions? Right, the gentleman down at the bottom.
Alexander Turkson, Trevelyan College. why is your campaign more likely to deliver than the other?
I think both campaigns will deliver, but I think that Theo has an excellent track record when it comes to delivery. Every single manifesto promise he has made in his Hust Protect Officer or any other position in the union he has held, he has delivered upon. And I think, I can't certainly say that for sure, and I don't think many other officers can. And I think that's the reason why I think that I know for certain that every promise that he makes is something that I know he will achieve, because he will put everything he has, he will pull every sinew in his body to make sure that happens. And that's the reason. Thanks.
Chris?
I think Aditya is completely right. Both campaigns, both candidates can do, and I know will do, as Theo's deputy. I've seen what he does. I know that he can do a formidable job. But Jerry has a unique breadth of perspective, having worked across so many different facets of the union. He was on Secretary's Committee. He was a Qualities Officer. He's now steward. And he has a unique sense of all the challenges that we face, not only in one part of the union, but across the entire society that we really need to address. And particularly as an international fresher himself, I think he has some other unique perspectives. And in terms of being able to deliver on them, I'm inspired by his very specific, measurable policies that he's put forward. They're more than the usual political pledges that everyone wants to achieve. And as someone who knows Jerry very well, he's deeply troubled with himself when he feels that he is not able to live up to his values, and he does everything within his power to live up to them. They are inseparable from his character.
You, Johnny?
Yeah, so there was something repeatedly mentioned, this debate, and I had actually, as a foreigner, had to put up the Oxford's Learner's Dictionary. And because there was something mentioned, I couldn't understand a word. An unopposed debate, and I had to look it up, and what a debate really means. And it's, in a debate, two or more speakers express opposing views, and then there is often a vote on the issue. So I ask, what is a one-sided debate on anything, basically? And should we really have it?
No, you have to ask the question.
It is a question. What is actually an unopposed debate? Question.
Debate needs both sides. In order to have a healthy conversation about anything, you need two people to disagree and reach compromise. That's how debate works. But Jerry's specific proposed one-sided debate goes with the motion, is for the motion. This House would talk about mental health. And when it comes to that, we're not talking about the specifics of it, but simply the motion, this House would talk about mental health on World Mental Health Day, I should add. I don't think that motion in itself is anything that anyone in this room, I hope, would ever seek to oppose in any form.
I would say that, yes, Chris, you're totally right. The concept of mental health and talking about mental health and the seriousness of it, no one should ever speak out against it. Whether I think that a debate is a right platform to have that conversation, no, personally. I think that our debates are there to spark conversation about issues, and that not necessarily political issues, all sorts of issues. I don't think the debate is the right format to do that. As to whether or not we should have an event on World Mental Health Day, certainly. As to whether a debate is the right event, and a motion like that with no opposition, even though there shouldn't be any opposition on that particular question, I don't think that would be appropriate. But I think that's just a fundamental disagreement. I don't think it's worth spending too much time on.
Just a reminder, questions must be directed to both of the proposers. So if anyone have any questions? Mr. Buckley.
I'm on Jerry's campaign, I'm not by Mildert College. Can I ask both proposers, what is their candidate's favourite drink at 24s, and how bad is their pint time?
Right, so Aditya.
Here's pint time. It's a good question. It has improved since last year. He's a big fan of doom bars, so a doom bar in stacks, and he will down it very quickly. He's better than me, that's for sure.
Chris?
I mean, Jerry has a few favourites at 24s, one of which was named after the elusive MM, a limited Durham Union. But having spent sufficient time with Jerry, I know that Carling is a favourite of his, and when available, sherry in particular. I think all of us should have a few reservations about his ability to knock a few of those down.
Right, we'll take one final question. Mr. Al-Bazi.
Adam Al-Bazi, Rules Committee. To end this on a nice and happy note, and this is a very Rules Committee question, but can you say something nice about the other side's candidate? Aditya?
I think, without question, Jerry is always welcoming, and he is probably one of the friendliest people I've ever met. And community, and the sense of it, community means a lot to him. And I think that is his finest, and it's a great quality that he has. Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah. Likewise, I've been very lucky to not only be close friends with Theo, but to work under him as deputy tech officer. And I am always amazed by the amount he manages to juggle his coursework, his union responsibilities, and everything else while maintaining a vibrant social life that many of us are lucky to share in. So there is no shortage of nice things to say about Theo Osborn or his character or any other things really.
Thank you. So we've reached the end of the Hust. Just to remind everyone, voting begins at 6 p.m. this Saturday, and then we will announce the results after the polls close on Sunday. And on that point, I hand it back to you, John.
Well, thank you, John. And there being no further business, I bring the meeting to a close. Thank you for coming.